This is it, SMX Insider on location. It's the Monster Energy FIM Motocross of Nations in England where the Jasons, Weigandt and Thomas. This race is always big, it's always unique, it's always exciting. But even with all that history, JT, I don't know how many measured up to this. We could immediately talk about Australia winning, how close Team USA is, but I think it's bigger than that. This was one of the most epic overall days of star power and close racing I've ever seen maybe in one day.
Well, on the front end of it, I think everybody was talking about it felt wide open.
Yeah.
There was no clear favorite, and that was the theme throughout the weekend.
Yep.
We didn't know who was going to win, and going into race 3 of the afternoon, it was completely wide open, and then chaos ensued in race 3 like it always does.
Yeah, there were 4 teams going into the final moto that was a shootout. USA and Australia, but also Spain and Netherlands were close as well, and then chaos did break out in the final moto. Koldenhoff from the Netherlands and Fernandez from Spain crashed into each other, so that kind of takes them out of it. And then it was USA versus Australia. And look, there are no moral victories in racing. Team USA comes up, I think, 3 points short. But I feel like for a team that was patched together, Aaron Plessinger got emotional and said, these two guys next to me haven't even raced motocross much. And for them to step up like this, I feel like it's as good as a second place can feel.
I think for most people, maybe Cooper Webb wanted to win, right? They all wanted to win.
Yes.
Everybody on the outside, I think most fans, if you offered them a second place coming in with the way this team unfolded, we almost didn't show up. I think everybody would have taken a second place a week ago. So the way they performed in the moment, in the clutch, coming here in that weather on that racetrack, that was a heroic performance by those 3 individuals.
But at the very top, what more can you say? It was maybe the only box the Lawrence brothers had not checked to not just win, but be the first Australian team to win. Their team manager, Michael Byrne, who you know well, said he was a rider 7 times. And they had many years where they could have won and had heartbreak. I think it might have meant more to him and Australia in general. I think for Jet, the wins just keep coming. I don't know if they've really realized what they've pulled off.
Well, the two of those 2 Lawrence brothers, right? They have such star power at the front, and Jet can win any race, anytime on this planet. And when you have a guy like that can put ones up on the board, it's the big unlock. That's what they've been missing for year after year, and sky's the limit from here, truly.
One other thought is that we knew that final moto of the day would be maybe the best moto ever when you look at the list of guys in it, and it delivered. We had Tim Geiser and Jet battling literally to the last turn.
Yeah, I still can't believe that way that all played out. It was so close to disaster for Jet Lawrence. I think he went over the finish line a little bit bummed that he lost the moto, but also relieved that he wasn't laying in a heap in the second to last corner. So it's always that way. That's what makes the Motocross of Nations, is everything that you wonder is going to happen. It always does happen. Things go crazy in that final moto, and they did today.
It was an epic day. We'll unpack it all here on this episode. So this is our big interview from the 2024 Motocross of Nations. The announcement of the 2025 Motocross of Nations is official. It is coming back to the United States. It'll be at Ironman Raceway. So we'll talk to Tim Cotter of MX Sports, helping put that on. And of course, the mayor of Ironman Raceway's town, Crawfordsville, Indiana, Tom Barton, with us also. But Tim, look, you've been around this type of event and many other great motocross events, including the Ironman National, for a long time. But the vibe I'm getting from you folks is this is not that. This is not just another big event that you guys are going to help put together.
No, it's the largest event in the world. It'll be the largest event that our company has ever put together. And for a guy that organizes events and works with an amazing team, it's a tremendous challenge. It's one that we've always wanted to do, but we had to have the right opportunity, the right situation, the right racetrack, and it's all come together now. So we couldn't be more excited about doing it in 2025.
Can you talk about what it means to the city of Crawfordsville, Indiana, to bring an event like this there?
Yeah, this takes it to another level, you know, and we've had those other events, but this is like those events on steroids, and the economic impact for our community is, you know, almost immeasurable. And then if you think about the, you know, the exposure that our community will get, we have a great community, very welcoming community, and we get to showcase that to people from around the world.
I heard you speak a little bit about how many people came together to make this happen, not only from your city and county, but the state as well. Can you speak to that, just the collaboration to bring an event like this to Crawfordsville?
Absolutely. You know, collaboration is really our strong point, and we were able to really leverage that in this instance as well. And it is every discipline within our community and also statewide. So we've used statewide resources, been able to secure a grant from our state tourism bureau, things like that, to really kind of pull this together. And right now we're in the planning phases, and we've assembled a very strong team to make sure we have absolutely everything covered when this happens next year.
Congratulations. I know we're all excited.
In the press conference, Tim, it was mentioned how the relationship has really evolved from In-Front Motor Racing, who puts on the MXGPs and the Motocross of Nations, and you folks, not just MX Sports, but even Felt Motorsports and everyone involved with SMX. So just talk about how that led to this. We've seen great Motocross of Nations events in America before, but this seems like something a little bit larger than just one event on one weekend.
I think it's paramount. I think it's, moto in itself is small. It may go globally around the world, but we're all dealing with the same issues. We're dealing with the same motorcycles, the same type of athletes. And so when the In-Front management team came to the U.S., it was over the Indianapolis Supercross. And we had an opportunity to sit with the leadership of Supercross and, of course, the leadership of motocross. And we found that we have a lot more in common than we don't. And so we're committed to work together and grow motocross racing across the globe, and try to get some things that align better. And so I believe that the relationship that has started, that embarked back at Indianapolis Supercross, is something that will carry forward for a long, long time.
Yeah, we're excited not just about next year, but anything else that could pop up in the future. It's October 5th, 2025. That'll be the Ironman race. If you've been to the National or the GNCC there, you know it's big, but we've been talking quite a bit. It's going to be a whole lot bigger than that, so you don't want to miss it. Okay, 30-second board. These are hot topics from Motocross of Nations, and it's not just about the result at the end of the day. It's about what the riders are racing for, their country. And credit to Team USA trying to motivate these guys. They've reminded them by having service members send letters and American flags to let them know what's truly on the line when you represent the USA.
Hello everyone, my name is Brad Raymond. 70 years ago at this very venue here at Matterley Basin, an idea was born. The idea of bringing a more intimate and patriotic experience to our riders. By presenting them with flags that have been flown at significant locations by active duty service members, symbolizing the deep connection between their achievements and the pride for our nation. Last night I presented the boys with personalized letters written by 3 active duty service members and veterans, citing what it means or meant to them to serve in the United States military and represent the Stars and Stripes, as well as what it means to see each of these patriots raise their hand and take on the world at the Motocross of Nations.
Yeah, I think that's what this is all about. This is the closest thing to the Olympics that motocross is ever going to get. And for all the servicemen around the world that are tuning into this race, they're all cheering on Team USA like it's themselves out there. So it's such a unique event that way. The patriotism really comes out. And it's also the only event where these guys are truly teammates, right? It's such an individual sport. The team aspect and the camaraderie behind the American flag means a lot, not only for the racers, but it means for everybody watching.
Yeah, because it's a common theme when they're trying to pick the team at the end of the year. You hear all these return on investment, the amount of time and how much effort this is at the end of the year to do this. It's not really about numbers on paper. It's about that camaraderie, and letting the service members let them know how much they appreciate it as part of that, and then organizing it. It's a much better organized Team USA effort than what you and I saw, for example, at Redbud in 2018. And part of that is the rules are different in these races internationally. And shout out to the AMA and Team USA for saying we're going to have a private meeting with the FIM to explain all the rules we're not used to all year long.
Yeah, things like jumping under a waving yellow flag and having to be in parc fermé with a certain amount of time, and are you allowed to have your mechanic go up to the starting line with you? All those little subtle nuances that can cost you positions or can catch you out by surprise on Saturday and Sunday. If you don't know, there's a really strong chance you're going to incur a penalty at a race like this.
Yeah, 6 years ago, he went out at Redbud. There were inside good gates that Team USA didn't pick because they didn't even know. This year it was so organized. They saw Jorge Prado's mechanic about to put a towel on the starting gate, and they knew the rule said if that towel touches the gate, we are protesting Spain. It has come so far with their knowledge of the rules. So shout out to everyone at Team USA who's organized this. And maybe at the top, of course, the AMA's Mike Pelletier. Then another obstacle. Remember that Webb and Tomac were late additions. Here's a little idea of the logistics to get to bikes and everything here late. Here at Mike Pelletier of the American Motorcyclists Association, we've got a really cool setup here in the Team USA portion of the paddock, but it looks easy when it's all done. but they're shipping all the motorcycles, parts, tires, all that. Just give us an idea of the logistics to make it look this easy on the weekend.
Honestly, it starts in like January every year. It's really turned into an all-year situation planning for this event. It's a massive undertaking to go race overseas, especially with some late changes to the riders really impacted that. So we were actually overnighting or air freighting the new motorcycles for Eli and Cooper. But we're here, we're set up, we're excited, and now it's just time for the boys to go do work.
I even heard the tires. You can't get those Dunlops that they're used to in America here, so you wanted to make sure they did not get stuck in customs.
Yeah, so we carry exactly right, and we carried on I think our Delta Flight like 22 tires. Yeah, so it was pretty crazy, and checked bags, and we kind of just motley crew put it together. But we're here, and the boys are about to take the track, and they have everything they need now, so it's time to do it.
Air freight overnight motorcycles and carry tires onto the plane as luggage. That's what it takes to make it work for these boys this weekend. Okay, so Team USA, a good effort, but we knew they were up against some juggernauts. I thought the Netherlands team might have been as strong as anyone on paper, and also Australia with the Lawrence brothers. Like you said, when you have a talent like Jet.
Yep.
But this race is weird. There are no guarantees, and they got it done this time.
They did, and they've been close so many times, but it just takes everything. It takes luck, it takes skill, it takes starts. You can't really have a weakness, and I really think Kyle Webster's one moto. We talked about it all weekend long. He got the start, he finished up there, and they needed that score.
That was it.
And when you have those juggernaut guys on your team, it's always the third rider that it comes down to. Can he get the one score to put you over the hump? Credit to Kyle Webster, first time at this event, first time racing in England, gets the job done for Team Australia.
Yeah, I believe it was at 11th on the 250 in the first moto that was like, he's done his job if Hunter and Jet do theirs, and they did. One other thing about Jet, that final moto was unbelievable. We knew how much was on the line. He took massive time out of Geyser and Tomac. He didn't win it, but I don't think anyone even in the MXGP paddock can wonder anymore, is this guy as good as we've seen on TV? I think he kind of stamped it. He's legit.
And about 3 laps in, I looked over at Paul on the broadcast and said, hey, I think Jet might win this moto. And he looked at me like I had 3 heads. But I've seen this story before.
Yeah.
You see Jet closing the gap down. I was watching his lap times, and I just started doing the math, and I'm like, this guy's coming to the front, right? And he didn't end up winning the moto, but it was just another chapter in the story of Jet Lawrence spreading his message globally about how great he is.
Yes. But shout out to Tim Geyser. Now, you were at the MXGP finale last weekend. Heartbreaker for the Slovenian. Has a slim points deficit to Jorge Prado. Doesn't end up getting the title. It's not the world title that he wanted, but this is something today going 1-1.
Yeah, this was a little redemption, and I think he's just, able to ride freely, right? He didn't have the pressure of Slovenia right at the top, right? So there's a little bit of that, right? Jet wanted to win for pride and country and all those things too, but Tim Geiser was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
I'm going to send it up the inside with 2 corners to go, and we'll see what happens.
Yep.
We'll just figure it out then. So credit to Tim Geiser. He laid it on the line. He got the job done because he had to have had a really tough week mentally after losing the World Championship by a handful of points.
Okay, so coming in, I had already mentioned, I think that Australia and the Netherlands maybe had the talent coming in. I thought Team USA had grit, the way they had patched this together. But the French team is always formidable because of their consistency. They're always greater than the sum of their parts. And it looked that way yesterday, but it actually went the opposite today. They shot themselves in the foot several times, uncharacteristically.
Yeah, and you look at the streak they went on.
Yeah.
2015, 2016, when they could do no wrong.
Yep.
Everything was going their way. This was almost a reversion to the mean, where the things that could go wrong did go wrong. Roman Febvre suffers an injury in that final moto. Maxime Renault is crashing. Tom Vial can't get his patented starts.
Yeah.
And that's all the things that they would have avoided on a day like today and ridden off to glory. Everything kind of came unraveled for them late in the day today.
Yeah, and when it's a one-race deal, we joked about this. We always try to not take Anaheim or Fox Raceway, the opening rounds, too seriously. It's just one race. But that's what we do here. So you just have one bad day and some bad luck, and it's over. But it leads to our next topic, which is Jorge Prado. So he's the MXGP World Champion now 2 years in a row. He's coming to America next year. I feel like race within a race. Maybe Prado wanted to show around the world, I'm coming to America, look out. It wasn't great today for him after the good starts.
Yeah, and I think when you win a championship like that, I've seen it go both ways. One, you can ride carefree, no pressure. You've been riding with the burden of a world championship on your shoulders for months, and you just go out there and you just dominate because you don't have that pressure anymore.
Yep.
Or you can have this kind of championship hangover effect where you don't have any intensity. You can't really find any urgency in your riding. I would argue maybe like Chase Sexton in Charlotte. You just can't get up in the moment because you've been up for so long.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it felt like for Jorge Prado today. He ran up front. We saw flashes of it, but for him to sustain it for 35 minutes, it just wasn't there.
What about the rain? That has been his weakness in MXGP. Was that maybe something we need to talk about more?
I think in full mud, yes.
Yeah.
But in tricky conditions like that, they see this stuff all the time. And if he couldn't ride conditions like that, I promise you he would not be back-to-back world champion.
Yeah.
So there was something going on. It'd be interesting to have a conversation with him because on a normal situation, he would never drop back the way he did today.
So let's get to what everyone anticipated with this race. The team thing is the big story, but this year everyone realized with the field we have, guys who haven't retired yet that are still good, young guys on the move, we might see some of the best racing ever. We thought it'd be in the third moto, but they didn't wait. The first 3 laps of the day in Moto 1 were all-star cast, amazing racing.
It was. If you looked up and down the top 10 in the early laps, you're just like, look at this roster.
Yes,
you know, we were
yes.
freaking out in the booth about it. It was just so much talent, and we were fortunate this year because there's so many injuries as a part of this sport, and guys can't make the event for one reason or another. Contract changes, all those things kind of get in the way of the Motocross of Nations at times. Not so much this year. We had talent all the way through, and it was like a world-class dogfight at the front of these races, and that's what this is about. The best riders in the world duking it out on one Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the guys in that was Jeffrey Hurlings. And the crowd these are probably the 3 most legendary guys of the generation that's still here, but kind of cresting, which would be Hurlings, Rocks, and Tomac. They were battling hard in that first moto, those early laps. And then Hurlings went down. And again, I thought on paper the Netherlands could win this. They were close. They had moments, but they couldn't quite put it together. That crash from Hurlings and DeWolf, a couple of crashes as well.
Yeah, but DeWolf was still the MX2 winner,
Yeah.
right? So I think he did his part. Really, to me, you know, Hurlings didn't have his best day. That's
Yeah.
part of it, right? If Hurlings is at the front, they have a chance. But then Coldenhoff, as many times as he's come through at this event, and he's been Mr. Sunday
Yeah.
at the Motocross of Nations, today was not that day. He couldn't get the starts. Crashes. It just wasn't a good afternoon. Really, even Saturday was not a good weekend for Glenn Coldenhoff, and I think in the end, that was the biggest difference.
Yeah, and he said as much in the press conference. Didn't get a result in Moto 2. That put the pressure on in Moto 3 because DeWolf was already done. And the Netherlands, in the end, they were actually happy to end up on the podium. Now, finally, we talk about Team USA. I know there aren't moral victories in sports, and this is the team that's won this event more than any other team in the history. They had the longest win streak in history, all those things. Team USA is usually pass-fail. But the way it's gone over the last decade, I feel like to come to Europe, to patch a team together, to be in contention, it's not a win, but it's kind of a win, at least in my mind.
We were incredibly close to not participating in this event this year. And even once we set a team with the likes of Eli Tomac as a fill-in,
Yeah.
I was still looking at it as like, you know, 4th or 5th would be pretty solid, right?
Yeah.
Cooper Webb hasn't raced the 250. He raced, what, 1 moto of Pro Motocross?
In, like, years.
This summer,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
this was not a team that was like, had a bunch of support and like everybody was ready and we're so prepared coming in. We
Yeah.
can get it. That was not this year's, right?
Yeah.
So for them to show up in incredibly tricky conditions on bikes that Cooper Webb wasn't used to it.
Yeah.
And pull out a second. It's an incredible performance, right? Is it going to go down in the history books? No. They didn't get the top step of the day. We all
Yeah.
know that. But to me, I think they overperformed almost everyone's expectations. And if you think they underperformed by not winning, I would say look again because this was an incredible effort by these guys.
It all leads to going to Ironman Raceway next year. It returns to the U.S. I don't think you're going to have a problem finding riders that want to race for the team next year. I think it's probably, if it works out, maybe Tomac even races it again. That's going to be a very special one for sure.
Well, they'll be lobbying to get on the team,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
why wouldn't they? We'll get an event like this right after the SMX World Championship ends at Ironman, a track they're familiar with. By the way, you can go to mxonusa.com, get tickets right now. But it's going to be an all-timer, right?
Yeah.
We hope the weather cooperates. That's a big factor. But coming off a second-place finish with some momentum, see if Hayden Deegan wants to maybe participate next year. I think we'll be in the running to win, right? We get second, so it's easy for me to say, but I really think going in, there'll be a lot of talk about USA winning.
Yeah, it wasn't a win, but the way they performed, the way they checked all the boxes, the way they lived up to their potential, and it's going to be tough to beat this Australia team going forward. But they didn't leave anything on the table, and that's a good sign for next year. So yeah, mxonusa.com. Tickets are already on sale for Ironman. Hey folks, SMX Insiders on hand after an epic, maybe best day ever in motocross at the Monster Energy Motocross of Nations in England. Team Australia wins. They had never won before. They have the Lawrence brothers in this window. You've got to get it done under pressure, and they did it this time.
Yeah, stop me if you've heard this before, but Jet Lawrence was a part of a winning team in motocross, but a truly historic performance for them. They showed up, they got the job done. Everybody wondered, would they ever get this done? congratulations to them, but I think for Team USA, this was an overperformance for expectations. You look at the chaos around the team, Cooper Webb joining at the last second, Eli Tomac really holding the linchpin for whether we would participate. He showed up in every way possible, leading laps today, running at the front. I'm so thrilled with the effort that Team USA put in.
Yeah, they end up second, and if you're an SMX fan, when you see Hunter and Jet, shout out to Kyle Webster, their 250 guy who got an 11th, that's what they needed. And then we had an epic final moto with Tim Geiser from MXGP and Jet battling to the last turn. You can't get much better than that.
What more could you want? I mean, Honda HRC is both pulling their hair out and also screaming in enjoyment, but that's what Motocross of Nations is. It's racing at the highest form, right? We don't get to see these guys all compete against each other anywhere other than this race. We're going to get to see it next year in Ironman as well.
Yep, epic day. Go to mxonusa.com to get your tickets, because next year the race is being held in the United States at Ironman in Indiana.